Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my October reading wrap-up. Now, I actually started quite a few books in October, but I managed to finish only 2. But, you know, quality over quantity, right? Let's get started. The first book I finished in October was The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I was buddy reading this with Rachel, and I have to say that we both were kind of chilled by some of the imagery in this book. This was the first T. Kingfisher book that I have ever read, but I have followed her, as in I have followed Ursula Vernon in DeviantArt, so I know her primarily through her illustrations and some of the content that she put up there. And I have to say that the main character of Kara, Carrot, reminded me very much of Ursula Vernon. Like, here we have a divorced graphic designer with a penchant for fanfiction and lots of old weird like taxidermy stuff, etc. So Kara's character read to me as kind of a self-insert, and especially as I read the acknowledgements and the author's notes in the end, I also realized that the other main character who we follow in this story, the character of Simon, is also very heavily inspired by people from Ursula Vernon's or T. Kingfisher's real life. Now, that didn't bother me too much because I felt like the ease with which she could write these characters, because they were familiar to her, because they were basically inserts from her own life, allowed her to focus more on the atmosphere and the mood of the world. This is basically a story about Kara as she goes to live with her uncle and work at her uncle's Wonder Museum, which is filled with all kinds of creepy taxidermy and basically sort of false, like false Bigfoot, etc. False Fiji mermaids, and she goes to visit her uncle or live with him, and she discovers this portal to another dimension in the museum, and it all sorts of goes from there, and she gets embroiled in this horrifying mystery with regards to this like world, and this world that keeps on calling her. And I thought that it was creepy, but in that sort of way that was easily palatable to me, because the creepy factors were tinged with humor, and also like the characters themselves were sort of self-deprecating and humorous in their way of coping. So that made it less creepy for me to read it. So I would say that for people who are skittish about horror, I think this is one of those books that may be easier to digest. And also, this for me is not a spoiler, but the cat survives. I won't say anything else, but the cat in this story survives, and for me that is crucial information for any animal lover who doesn't want to see animals getting killed or tortured in movies or whatever. So yeah, I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. It was enjoyable, but some aspects like the self-insertness of the characters, and also the sort of the ending of the book felt a little lackluster. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. But the build-up and the tension and and especially some scenes in the book were delightfully creepy. So yeah, I thought this was a very good read, and I will definitely be picking up more from T. Kingfisher in the future. And the next book that I read was Samuel R. Delaney's Babel 17, and I was kind of debating whether I wanted to give this 4 stars or 3.5 stars, and I kind of ended up teetering towards the 3.5 star mark because of my own general enjoyment of the text. I found the concepts in this book to be very fascinating. This takes a look at language and how language can be used to sabotage and program people to do certain things, and how our understanding of a language can change our whole perspective of the world. Basically, the language in this book becomes its own sort of magic system and its own sort of the characters use language to alter reality, essentially. And it was really interesting, but what hindered my enjoyment was the characterization. Samuel R. Delany works with archetypes. Basically, I feel like he wanted to explore these concepts, and he does so wonderfully, but he kind of focuses on the concept of the language and on the world at the sort of expense of the characters. I felt like the character of Rydra was just a means to an end. Like, she's almost too capable, and she doesn't have any faults. She's always right. She doesn't make any mistakes. At the end of the book, there is a twist that kind of made me feel more sympathetic to her, and made me feel like she was a more flawed human being than I initially thought. But for the most part of the book, she is kind of like a vessel for the story beats. And I found that a lot of the side characters, which we don't get to know too much about, but we sort of see them bouncing around and banter, I felt like some of the side characters were actually more interesting than the main character whose point of view we are following. So it was a bit of a mixed bag, but I want to reread this maybe next year after I've had some distance, and I will take it from the beginning and just comb through it and really focus on the concepts, because I feel like it has such an interesting premise, and the way that it talks about linguistics and handles the language aspect was masterful. I just need to go back in knowing that it won't be as character-driven of a book as I normally prefer, so that I may enjoy it more on the next go-around. But yeah, I still think that this is a science fiction classic that you should read if you can get your hands on it, because it deals with some very interesting topics. And there you have it. Those are the books that I managed to finish in October. Tell me in the comments if you have read either of these books. And if you got this far, leave me a tree emoji down in the comments so I know that you were here. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye!